Hello and welcome to this time lapse. We've got some more daffodils in a green vase. I just completed a daffodils in a green jug a couple of weeks ago, which you can see here on my channel. There's also a time lapse of that. But I wanted to see if I can create something with a very different feeling. So the subject's the same. It's the same color family. We've got greens and yellows, but the end result is very, very different. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create more of a high key background, meaning a light background. The previous one is a very dark background, but I wanted to create this light background with these desaturated yellow greens. And I think overall the painting really, really worked. And I also wanted to create more of a harmony. So an overall color scheme of this is yellow green. And so I kept that in the background as well, rather than the brown. I'm working on the pastel matte paper here. It's in the dark gray color. It's a A3 size, and the reason that it's a size is that I'm recycling a frame that I have. I frame my work behind, I frame my pastel work behind art glass, and it can get really quite expensive, especially the larger you frame. The larger the frame, the more expensive it is. So you can actually fork out quite a lot for framing. So recycling the frames is a win-win for me. If things don't sell, and I don't feel precious about the work, if I don't particularly like it or whatever, then I will very easily just recycle that frame. I feel like with pastel, it's just such an incredible medium, but one of the downsides to it is that you have to frame behind glass. There's no other way. I've tried spray varnishes. The first light coat will work, but then you come in with the second coat and there's going to be a spray that darkens a little and it shows up as like a little spot. So anyway, I just have no way of framing pastel except, behind glass. Anyway, so it's quite expensive and it's heavy. Glass is heavy. So lugging around these pastel paintings from art venue to art market is, it's heavy. That's why I usually pastel quite small paintings. It's just easier to handle. And it's cheaper to frame. Anyway, so that's enough about pastel and the framing. So the daffodils. I went for, you can see in the reference photograph, more of egg yolk sunshine yellow. It's not as lemony and acidic yellow, like it's not a very green yellow like in the previous daffodils. So these are beautiful, warm sunshine tones. I do have greens in the shadows. They worked really, really nicely. Some earthy greens, also like desaturated grayish greens. I tried to keep the color harmony throughout this piece with yellow greens and yellow green gray. So just more desaturated colors really. I changed the flowers a little bit, as you can see. This was created using Midjourney, the actual image. And there's always going to be something that doesn't make sense or that doesn't work. And in this case, it was the buds. These are not lifelike buds of what a daffodil bud looks like. So I used photo reference I had taken for my other painting, because I took those photo reference myself. I set up a little still life and took some shots, and I just added 2 of the daffodils from those photo reference. So you can see the top right there, I've got a daffodil. I just felt like it needed a bit of something. I liked what the buds were doing on the right there. But like I said, that's not what daffodil buds look like. It wouldn't make sense in the painting. So that's why I decided to add another daffodil. So you can see the difference in the color here with my camera. It's very annoying, but this at present is too yellow. It's almost like it's got a yellow filter on it. This is not the real color of the finished painting. The photograph in the beginning of this demo, this time lapse, and the photograph at the end, that is more of a realistic representation of what the finished piece actually looks like. So I did quite a bit of work on the daffodils before I moved on to the vase. I find flowers notoriously difficult. Even though I'm looking at tonal value, color and shape, just the same as anything else I pastel, something about flowers is just quite difficult, and I find I'm concentrating so much. When it comes to doing ceramics, it's like I ease off. It's like my plain sailing happy days. So I wanted to get as much of the hard work of the actual flowers done before I moved on to the plain sailing of the painting, which is the vase. I don't know if it is just because with the vase it's a lot of abstract shape, but I suppose you could say the same for a daffodil. If you're not thinking, oh, it's a flower, it's a daffodil I'm painting, and you just look at it as abstract shape and color, what's the big difference? I don't really have an answer except something about flowers triggers my brain. I've got to concentrate a lot where I just ceramics flow off from my hand to the paper. I just find it's just much easier for me. So yeah, sometimes if I find something wasn't working, like that daffodil that I put in on the right, the shape was all wonky, the tubular part wasn't kind of connected to the calyx properly, it was just looking weird. I then moved on to the vase, and then I came back to the daffodil. So if something's not working, often I'll move somewhere else in the painting, and then go back to a place that was giving me a bit of trouble. Here you can see me refining the daffodils. So they weren't done, they weren't finished by the time I started the ceramic vase, but there was a lot of groundwork that had been done. Here I'm tweaking. I'm using a lot of my pastel pencils to put in those details and the little nuances of shadow and light. If you wanted to see this over in real time, there's a link in the description below to my Patreon page where I've got a whole range of demos, me talking you through as I'm passing along, as well as voiceovers. And this is uploaded on there too if you wanted to see this come together. So you can see on my pieces I use pastel pencils as well as soft pastels. I love my pastel pencils. I find them really useful for getting into the small little spaces. Like I said, I don't paint very large, so often something with a small tip like the pastel pencil comes in really handy. You can see for the details I've been using them quite a lot just to shift some of the pigment that is already on the paper in place, as well as to bring in some harder lines and, like I said, just all the little details. That's me in a funny position trying to not block out the camera as I go along. So I didn't use any white in this painting at all. The brightest lights you can see is actually done with a, it's done with a warm white. So it's a white that's got a slight tint of yellow to it. So there's no pure white in this painting at all. Also for the highlights in the vase, I used Blue Violet BV7 by Unison. It's a stunning color. Again, it's a tinted white. It's got a blue violet tint to it. So I initially did the table gray, but I went back over with a more green because I just felt like the gray was adding, it was just too gray. And like I said, I really wanted to continue with the color harmony of yellow greens in this one, and stay away from like true grays, if you know what I mean. So I just went over with yellow. Then by the end of this, I'd done so many daffodils in 2 weeks. This daffodil on the table just literally flew off from my hands onto the paper, no problem. So out of all the practice, this came together quite nicely. So it just goes to show practice, 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 and also determination to improve. So I'm determined to improve my flowers. So I will not shy away from them, but I shall paint more and more of them. Anyway, this is coming to an end now. I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.